Okay, so now that we're a few episodes into this new series, I gotta say, it's starting to get pretty good. There are a lot of new comps that we've never seen before, plus the social strategy is at least present. There is still a lot of context that we miss without the feed, so that sucks, but the 90-minute episodes do seem to be doing a decent job of making up for it. Before we get into the show, make sure you hit that subscribe button below just so you can stay tuned as we continue to recap this wonderfully weird spinoff. Now, let's get started. So now that Cameron's gone, the plan for most people now is to target the next biggest comp beast in the house, which is of course Cody. This move makes total sense to pretty much everyone except for Frankie. So everyone sees Cody as the next biggest threat, but plans are kind of put on pause for a little bit when Cody actually ends up winning the song guessing competition thing, and he wins an advantage to go along with it. The advantage is the power to pick the teams in the next competition. Now, they call this an advantage, but you're also kind of making enemies out of the other half of the house that you don't pick, which I actually thought was fun. Although it's not really much of an advantage, especially when you don't even know what the next competition is going to be. Cody ends up picking the very predictable team of Frankie, Xavier, and Nicole, which I guess kind of makes sense since they seem the most well-rounded. But again, everyone else who isn't picked is now kind of feeling left out and bitter towards Cody.
He puts me on my team, and I'm looking at the team, I'm like, yeah, I'm on the Misfits team. I hope this doesn't mean I'm going into Santa Showdown.
To make matters even worse, Cody also now has to give somebody a disadvantage in the game, which of course is going to hurt his social game even more. Normally, in a longer season, it may actually be best to throw some of these naughty or nice challenges, especially since the advantages and disadvantages aren't really as effective as we thought they'd be. But again, in a shorter season like this, it does make the game just a little bit more chaotic, which I also appreciate. So right now, it's looking like Cody's team is more stacked, but then again, these challenges haven't been as physical as they are in a typical season, so really it could be anybody's game. The next challenge is a balance competition, and it looks like this one in particular would really favor people that are taller and with longer arms. But as we see with Xavier, size isn't everything here. Skill and patience are also super important. So even though Cody's team is much taller in stature, they still end up losing. Now that winning team has the power to save just one person from the elimination, which at this point, it's kind of seeming like they're just making up these rules as they go, but fine, whatever. The obvious target is Cody, and he totally knows it, so he's not even gonna try to pitch for himself here, which normally in a regular season, I detest it, but I actually love this from Cody here.
So yeah, save one of them. Obviously, I got nothing to say. I put everybody in this position. I feel horrible for putting them in this spot, so.
I respect that.
I respect that so much, dude.
This show is just so unserious. I mean, I love the fact that everybody is really playing into their roles and getting into character here, but also I don't think we're necessarily going to have the same passion and rage that we would in a regular season. Nicole does end up being saved here, and Xavier is not saved, and he is very pissed about it, which I kind of get because it did look like he had pretty good working relationships with everybody on that other team. But again, there are just too few options, and this season is way too short to like really build any actual bonds. Right now, it looks like Xavier is way more loyal to these people than they are to him, and I'm just hoping that that does not turn around to bite him. They all put up a good fight, but in the end, Cody is the last to finish and is ultimately the one sent home. But not without watching Frankie celebrate first.
Woo! I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I am so sorry.
I honestly was not expecting Cody to leave so soon. I mean, this challenge seemed like one that anybody could have easily lost. It just came down to Cody. Either way, now that two guys are gone, the girls' alliance is starting to look pretty strong for now. Nicole is swearing up and down that she wants to work with the ladies, which I know no one in the fandom believes. I'ma just let the girl cook for a little bit and see what she does. After all, we know that Danielle is not above cutting the ladies at any time, and neither is Britney, which I don't think is the best move here. I mean, the ladies are finally in the majority in the game, so I wouldn't be giving that up too easily just yet. Derek X pops in to make a cameo hosting the next game, and we also get this crooner bit on the show, which, you know, shout out to the guy, he was so talented at all. But this went on for way too long, y'all. This next game ends up being this mental word scramble comp type thing, which honestly was probably way harder than it looked. Eventually, Taylor ends up winning this round and also an advantage for the next comp, which will be the tiny veto. We've seen this competition play out on Big Brother so many times before, but this time it's Christmas theme, obviously, with these cute little gingerbread men. This tiny veto did look a little bit more difficult than the original one though, just because of those flat shapes. The players really seem to struggle with this one for a while, and we see a few techniques being worked out here, but ultimately Nicole is able to reign supreme and ends up winning this challenge and safety for the day. Now, here's where things start to get interesting, because this next showdown is going to be done a little bit differently. Nicole will now choose one person to compete, and this person will get the most time, aka the biggest advantage in this next challenge. If they survive, then they will nominate someone else, but this person will get even less time, and so on until finally somebody loses. I loved everything about this twist. It creates a lot of tension because you could send in an ally hoping that they'll be able to make it and send somebody else in. Or you could send in an enemy in hopes that they lose, but if they don't lose, they're gonna come back in that house pissed at you. It's like a more advanced version of the traditional knockout comp. I don't think I've ever seen this done on Big Brother before. Let me know if you have, but I'm really hoping that they implement something like this on the actual show. In the end, Nicole sends her ally Frankie into the maze first, hoping that he'll survive since he's good at puzzles. It's a struggle at first, but Frankie eventually survives, and now the pressure is on him to choose the next victim. Frankie ends up choosing X just because he's really fine with him staying or leaving here.
If he comes back, then he's my ally because I gave him the second best chance to survive. If he goes home, then I've eliminated a huge competition threat in this game. Either way, good for me.
I thought a neutral move like this was pretty smart for Frankie, because even if X stays or leaves, I don't think Frankie would get too much blood on his hands for this. Xavier does go up to play, and he is just barely able to pull out the win with only a few seconds left on the clock. And since he barely survived this last round, he just knows that the next person up after him has no chance. With a cosign from Danielle, Xavier chooses Britney to play next since they're not super close in the game in the first place. And as we see, Britney does not take this news well at all, okay? She knows she's not good at puzzles, she knows she doesn't have much time, she knows Xavier just gave her a death sentence. So she walks into the challenge already in a negative headspace, and it's a struggle at first. But eventually, Britney is able to get the hang of the hamster wheel and absolutely kills this comp with plenty of time left on the clock to spare. She's so shook, y'all, she can't even believe it.
I hate all of them. They sent me to my death.
It is now up to Britney to make the choice on who to send in next, but this time she really knows that it's a death sentence for them. She's mainly thinking of two options here. One of them is Taylor, who has volunteered to go next for whatever reason. I'm guessing it's a combination of fear and hubris. The other option is Danielle, who she knows threw her under the bus because Xavier told her. Josh didn't seem to be an option here, and I'm not totally sure why. This is something that I really wish we got more context on, because Josh seems like he would be the option to choose here. Britney is eventually gonna pick Chaos though, and choose Danielle to go up next, even though she has very little time on the clock. This was a very bittersweet moment for me because on one hand, I love me a good revenge story, But on the other hand, I also love me some Danielle Reyes. These two had also been foreshadowed to come after each other for a couple episodes now, so I also kind of saw this coming. Danielle tries her best to finish off everything as quickly as she could, but there just isn't enough time. She is eventually eliminated, and it's a pretty emotional moment for everybody. Danielle was an absolute force back in her day, and she has been wanting to come back to play for so long now, so this one definitely stung. So with 3 episodes down, only 6 players are left as we head toward the actual Reindeer Games. It looks like we do still have some groups working together headed into the next episode, but the alliances in this thing have been shoddy at best, so we'll just have to see. I'm really loving how varied these competitions are so far in terms of skill level. The twist in this last maze game was especially good. Like, it's the only competition so far that actually had me glued to the TV. So hopefully they keep the social game intact and they keep some of these newer comps coming. But I do still wish there was some sort of live feeds or something, because even though everything's been pretty solid and the context has been good so far, there's something about it that still feels a little empty, you know? Once again, don't forget to hit that subscribe button below so you can stay tuned as these new episodes come out. I will be seeing you all later, but until then, peace.